Let's talk about this issue that I did miss last week, earlier this week, from the New York Times. They're discussing guns for the mentally ill. And so, according to an editorial in the New York Times discussing the rule that that is being proposed, it would have required the Social Security Administration to add about 75,000 people currently on disability support to the National Background Check Database and deny them gun purchases. The rule was focused narrowly on disabled individuals who require a trustee for personal management. Now, these individuals who suffer from things like schizophrenia, psychotic disorders, and other problems to such an extent that they are unable to manage their own financial affairs, their own personal financial affairs, and other basic personal tasks without help, they are no longer prevented from getting access to weapons. An existing law bars gun purchases to people who are, quote, adjudicated as mentally defective or involuntarily committed to a mental institution. But enforcement of that law has been, over time, pretty spotty. But Charles Grassley, Republican of Iowa, envisioned people with an eating disorder being barred from buying a gun. So what we've done is we've taken an absurd conclusion, logical conclusion, right? We've taken an absurd example and used this as a means of opening up, the ability of people who are not mentally competent enough or developed enough to take care of their personal finances or themselves as an individual now have access to getting guns. So part of me wants to be gracious and consider people who take the Second Amendment as just a, non-negotiable, and that any infringement on that is an infringement on the right to bear arms. But this is just damn insane not to be ableist in an ableist story. I don't know if I have the language to not be ableist on this. But this is absurd. There we go. This is absurd. Because even if you are an absolutist on the Second Amendment, we can all agree, or we should be able to agree, that a person who is not developed enough or mentally stable enough to take care of themselves should not be able to purchase a gun. But it would seem that people who believe in a strict interpretation of the Constitution on every other issue feel flexible enough with the Second Amendment to make exceptions, or to include, rather, not make exceptions, but to include mentally unstable and the mentally ill. I don't know if I don't think that I can engage in commentary on this to show the absurdity of it. Simply the title alone should be absurd, but we're not dealing with reasonable people. When we're talking about the Second Amendment and people who are absolutists with regard to the Second Amendment, we're clearly not dealing with rational people. And part of me, the reason I'm discussing it like that is because, my gut reaction has always been, well, this is for the NRA and this is for the gun makers and they want to make all this money. But we're talking about approximately, we're talking about a small percentage of people. And we can't be talking about a large enough group for people to be concerned about profit margins off of that group. I don't think. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they are so obsessed that they would want the profits off of 75,000 people. And even as I say it, I get it. But I think this boils down to people just being absolutists on the Second Amendment, to the detriment of everyone who they're caretakers, to their family, to their loved ones, to their friend, to the friends of the mentally ill. this is rather detrimental to the communities, and that's all I'm going to say about that.